How'd you keep it together telling that story? I would have lost it. I almost lost it sitting here.
I'm barely keeping it together. I've always been heavier. I started at 345. I was desperate.
All right. Hey, there we go. Thank goodness. We just had some audio difficulties, but we are back. Welcome back to the Kettlebell Guys podcast. Sean just coined a new term. We have a new guy in the Kettlebell Guys hot seat today. Welcome to the podcast, Mr. Mark Ambrose. How are you, man?
I'm good. I'm glad to be here.
Mark, for those that don't know you, can you give a little background on yourself and, how long you've been in KT? How'd you find KT? All that fun stuff.
Mark Ambrose. I am 43 years old, live in Evansville, Indiana. I'm married, have two daughters, 14 and 11. I found kettlebell transformation. Actually, older brother and I started doing kettlebells probably 4 or 5 years ago. We started out with Keith Weber kettlebell cart. And how we found that was Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan really put Keith Weber on the map because I think Joe Rogan used it for a little bit. So with that and with that interest, we started following, on Instagram, different social media, started following kettlebell pages. And with that, the algorithm eventually led us to Grant Anderson and some of his posts. And Grant, my brother actually saw Grant's pages first in 2022. He would send me, different workouts, Grant, that you would post. And I would look at the workouts, like the workouts. And then it was towards the end of 2022, Grant put a post out, basically saying, if you're ready for a transformation, send me a post or send me a DM that says ready. And, I responded to that like I had so many different programs up to that point. I put, quote, ready, not knowing if I was ready, but I was at the time searching for something. Back up a little bit. 2017, I've always been heavier. My dad's heavier. He's fought his weight his whole life. And I've, was fortunate to get, he's heavier. My mom is light, has always been fit, in pretty good shape. But I got my dad's genes and I've always fought my weight. And so from 2017 to 2019, I started out, I was at 315 pounds. And I lost 100 pounds then from 2017 to 2019. And then in 2019, I just, for whatever reason, I started to fall off and started to gain the weight back. And then 2020 hit, gyms closed, and I essentially used that as an excuse to not do anything. And I gained all the weight back and then some. I went from I think my lowest that I got during that time period was 212. And the heaviest I got when I started KT was 345. And that's what I weighed when I started KT at the end of 2022. Grant reached out. We connected. I did the application, the KT application. And there was a lot, when Grant looked at my application, there was a lot that you said in your review. I've mentioned this before, that really spoke to me. In that review. And again, I jumped into it. I jumped into it because I was desperate, looking for something to how to get back on track. I like kettlebells, and it just seemed like a good fit for me at the time. So I signed up and got started.
So I think that aspect of your story is one that a lot of guys don't know, is how you had lost a lot of weight prior to KT. So you'd lost a lot of weight, but then went through the process of gaining it back. So when you were out there so you said 2020 gyms closed, it was an excuse to do nothing, which is a lot of guys still cite that. They cite COVID as the time where they just kind of fell off and haven't got back on track since, even now. When you were looking for something and you say you were desperate, can you take yourself back to that time? So it was so long ago now. And tell me more about that time period of your life and what you were really looking for when you were looking for a program that would be different than what the experience you had gone through 2017 to 2019.
I think for me, when I did it before, I did it on my own. I researched workouts. I did have a program that I did that I was fairly successful with. It was, again, it was social media. The guy's name was Bobby Maximus was the trainer. It's what he goes under is Bobby Maximus. And it was actually, I plugged in with a guy that's with Bobby Maximus, Joe Sabula is his name. And, those workouts they were tough. I mean, they were really, really, I got in really good shape, but they were really, it's 45 minutes to an hour of you just pounding your body. I mean, it's just, it's barbells, but I did it on my own. And I think for me, I think that's what led to, I think I just got to the point that I needed support. And I think in 2019, I didn't have any support. I didn't have anybody to go to when I started to struggle. And so I fell off. And then I think what I was searching for in that time period from basically 2020 to 2022 was something different, something that wasn't me doing it on my own. Because during that time frame, I bought, you see these $99 programs and then I bought everything under the sun. I've got a file on my computer where I've got 15 to 20 different PDFs that cost, $99. And I never did any of them. They're great fitness influencers. I think there's a lot of names that, we would all recognize, but they just didn't. Doing it on my own and pulling up a PDF just didn't really resonate with me, and I couldn't get started. No matter how hard I tried, I would take the PDF, print it off, and take it to my gym, and I just couldn't get started. With 2020, whenever all of that happened, immediately I thought, the gyms are closed now. What I need to get started is I need to put a gym in my barn. I need to go out and buy all this equipment, because that's what it is. I just don't have the equipment. And I basically now have a full-on CrossFit gym in my barn. I mean, it's all Rogue. So I've got a rig, I've got 3 barbells, I've got plates, but what I also had with that is I had some kettlebells at the time, not quite as many as I have now, but I still didn't do it. I had this whole gym, where I had rowers. Everything you can think of, I have in my barn at home, and it just sat there and I didn't use it. So I think for me, I was just searching. I knew that there was something else that I needed to plug into to help get me over the hump to get started. And I think with KT, I can remember, reviewing the video like it was yesterday when you reviewed my application and, walking in and talking to my wife and saying, hey, I think I want to try this. What do you think? And she just wanted me to be happy and be successful. And as much as she didn't want to support it at the time, because she thought it was just going to be another program that I paid for that I didn't use. And then especially considering, the investment, she still agreed to it. And, I kind of dove in and moved forward with the hope that was going to be it for me, that KT was going to be the program that kind of pulled me back out and put me on the right path. And it turns out it absolutely was.
I know Sean's definitely got some questions about the initial KT experience. Before we get there, Mark, when you say there were certain things in your application review that spoke to you, do you remember kind of what those things were? What those things that were kind of the shit, that's the harsh truth, or that's the reason why I need to do something like this? Do you remember what those were?
Yeah, I think the number one, probably my kids, probably the impact on my kids and setting the example for my kids, because I wasn't up to that point, and just being there for my kids. And I'm going to try to dance around getting into, some personal, I don't, want to get emotional or anything, but my oldest daughter has some health issues and, I need to be healthy for her so I can take care of her. She can take care of herself. If you met her, you wouldn't know anything's wrong with her, but she has a fairly significant heart condition. She's had 3 open heart surgeries, and I think that's part of what was wearing on me was I wasn't taking care of myself. And not only was I not taking care of myself, I wasn't setting an example for her to see what healthy is, because being healthy is going to be it's very important to her now, but it's going to be very important for her for the rest of her life. But then it was also my youngest daughter. If you saw a picture of her, I mean, she's basically a mini me. And, when I would look at her, I always think she's mini me. Is she going to get, the genes to where she fights her weight? And so I think setting the example for my kids, but then also, where I'm at in life with my profession, I'm CFO for a company. So I've got 350 employees that are under me. I think setting the example for all the employees. And then I think it's just setting the example in general for anybody I come into contact with. I wanted to set the example, and I wasn't doing that. And I knew that I should be. I knew I was in a position to be setting an example. And I've been in the video when you did the review, you mentioned those things, and it really spoke to me. I mean, I actually went back. I had you send it to me probably, I don't know, probably a year ago. And I went back over the weekend and just listened to it again. I've listened to it several times. It's just, it's one of those things. What I would say to you is I know you probably do a lot of reviews, but there were a lot of things said in that really spoke to me, and they still do.
Wow. It's huge. Pivotal moment. I know you have a few more of those with Coach Rich and everything, but Mark, I want to touch on a couple of things that you mentioned. There were two things that really stuck out to me that you mentioned. One was you said that it was your health, or maybe your lack of health, was really wearing on you. I'm interested to dig a little bit deeper into what did that actually mean to you? Like, what did it mean that it was wearing on you? What were you feeling, or what couldn't you do that you wanted to be able to do? Obviously, you just touched on setting the example for your kids, especially your daughters, looking at her being mini me. But I want to understand what it meant in your head to have something wearing on you. Like, how did that impact your day to day? And then also, I'm really interested in what you mentioned about your wife, because this is by far the number one objection that we hear when guys, they want to do it, but they'll sort of say, I need to get permission from my wife, or we need to be on the same page. And what you mentioned there is, I think, really common is, your wife was like, didn't want it to be another failed attempt. But it sounds like somehow you were able to either convince her, or she said, go for it. But I'm really interested to just learn about that. Like, what was the moment like? And then how did you and your wife finally come to the conclusion that, no, it is worth it for you to make this investment? This isn't a $99 PDF. This is, multiple thousands of dollars that we're going to invest in your health, and it's going to be worth it. So can you touch on the wearing on you first? And then can we maybe get to the part where you and your wife finally did decide that it was the right move?
Yeah. I think for me, the wearing on me part was, as many people, and I guess I can back up from where I'm at now, daily with the changes that I've made daily, have people come up to me and ask me, A, if I'm on Ozempic, and B, if I'm on TRT, which I'm not on either. But,
I'm on
tell the
kettlebells.
story. When you lose that much weight and you gain it back, it's really hard to tell that story. And that's the story that it was really hard for me to even go, especially to see people that I hadn't seen in 6 months or a year. Because, when they had seen me before, I'd had those same conversations with people because I lost all that weight. And then, like a lot of society, that's be harsh, but people are full of excuses, and they almost celebrate when people fail in this arena. People would say, well, what happened to you? What? So I think my confidence was really low, and I really struggled with that because, I lost all this weight, I'd done races before, and, I gained it all back, and I'd go around people and explain, what happened, which, there's no good answer to that. I mean, what happened is I got lazy and I didn't do what I should do. And that was the really hard part. But then it's the physical, it's all the experiences that you have when you're heavy and you lose that weight and then it gets taken away from you. It's the ability to buy clothes. It's the ability to feel good, when you get dressed. It's the It's just, it's the movement aspect of it. It's, we were talking before, you know, shoveling snow. I shoveled my driveway yesterday. I couldn't have done something like that, nor would I have tried. But I actually, like I said, I have a tractor. I could have scraped my driveway yesterday, but I chose to shovel it because it's a workout. Um, but I think it was I just didn't feel good. I mean, in 2017, I can remember the conversation with my physician. He finally looked at me, and at the time, I actually smoked in 2017. I smoked cigarettes, and he told me, he said, if you want to be here, you're getting to the age now, which at the time I would have been 36, 37. If you want to be here in 25 years and walk your daughter down the aisle, you need to make a change. And I made that change, but then I gained it all back. And it was like, well, how serious were you? So that hurt my confidence. How dedicated are you as a father? How dedicated are you as a husband? I'm someone that, I've always considered myself the rock in my family. And, I wasn't being that. And what I figured out through this experience and with KT was that, I needed to make those changes so I could be the rock. With my wife, Sandy, I think she saw how happy I was whenever I was thinner, when I lost weight before. And it's not really, for me, it's not really about thin or heavy. I think it's just, you just feel better. I mean, you feel better when you're stronger. You feel better, when you can move, when you can, take the trash can down to the mailbox and it's raining and you can run back to the house versus get soaked. I mean, there's so many things that you just don't think about, and your confidence is higher. And I think she wanted so desperately for me to make a change that while she questioned it, I think she supported me just trying something different. And at the time, I mean, I'll tell you, it wasn't a matter of really, it's not something that I probably could really afford at the time, but it was something that we knew needed to happen. I needed to make a change, and we knew that I needed to find something that would resonate with me. And she supported that. And I can tell you, looking back, that if you asked her today, she would tell me to do it 10 times over, from all of the changes, because it's what it's done financially. I mean, with the added confidence, it's just a compounding effect of, I'm making 25, 30% more now. And it's all of that's a result of the confidence built from making the changes, getting into the program. And just, it's not about just getting in shape. It's not about just kettlebells. You change your entire being. And when you change your entire being, you build the confidence to excel in exercising, but it's also in your work, in your home life, your family, everything. And when I look back at, the investment when I first started, I would almost laugh if somebody questioned it, just because it's the changes that I've seen in my life. And everybody can make those same changes. Maybe they're not in the same place that I'm in, but everybody has struggles. Everybody has emotion that if they get the confidence and they feel good about themselves, no matter what you do, you can be better.
Mm. And
that's a really cool story.
Yeah, she would tell you to do it 10 times over, man.
She would.
So
did she, Mark? Sorry, Grant. Let me ask Mark a quick question, if you don't mind.
That's okay.
I'm curious about that moment that you guys actually decided. Did you convince her to let you go for it, or did she push you and say, Mark, you got to do it? Like, how did that actually go? Do you remember?
I had to convince her at the time.
You had to battle for it?
Yeah. Yeah. Because I can remember when I'll just be honest. My thing back then was I would stand in my garage and drink beer, which I don't do anymore, which we can get into that part. And I reviewed the video and I was excited, super excited. And it, like I said, it touched me. And so I remember going into the living room, she was inside, and I remember saying, hey, I found this program. I think I'm going to sign up for it, laid it out, all of the positive changes, had the sales pitch ready to go. Then I got to the end and I said, and it costs this much. And she just looked at me, and I remember she was like, and I made all the promises that I'd made before. This is the one, this is going to be it. This is how it's going to be different. And I think finally I just wore her down, and she finally just said, okay, just whatever you feel like you need to do. Just, this one though, you need to stick with, you need to. And I think that for me, I think that's what was different too. $99 is not, it's not, that's a good amount of money, but you wouldn't, if there's $99 laying on the ground, anybody would stop and pick it up. But this investment was different. But I think that's what pushed me in the beginning to stay with it. And my journey at first, even when I first started, wasn't typical, I don't think. But I think that's, the money, like I said, I'm CFO, I'm a financial, person. I think the money stuck with me, and I kept saying, you made this investment. And I don't think I would let myself go back on it completely. I think it kept bringing me back, because I thought, if you don't go forward with this, this is your last straw. If you don't go forward with this, you're not going to go forward with anything, because you've put everything into this. If you don't go forward and you stop this or drop this or quit, then where are you going to go? What are you going to do next? You've got a full CrossFit gym. You've got, every program under the sun and then you just made this substantial investment, and if you don't stay with this, you're not going to stay with anything.
Wow.
And but then I think the fun part for me was, even once I got started in the program at the beginning, she saw that it was something that I kept coming back to, especially the steps, almost to a ridiculous standpoint, to get my steps every day. It resonated with her. And I think slowly but surely she started to be glad that I did it. And then obviously she was in full support of it as the changes took place. So,
Man, so you knew you had to fight for it. Sorry, Grant. I know you have questions. I'm just so interested in this aspect, because this is like, I mean, Mark, honestly, this is the moment for guys where they either make the decision that they're going to do it. Like, this is it. I have to either do, because what you said about having every PDF, having the gym, having lost the weight before and put it back on. So many men we talk to are right there. And then they use the excuse of, either I can't afford it, or my wife doesn't want me to do it. Like, those are by far the two. And you said both of those things. You were like, we probably couldn't afford it. And, I had to convince my wife. And a lot of times guys will just come back to us and say, I decided that I can't do it, or that we can't afford it, or there are just too many other things. And I'm always so interested to hear from a guy, especially someone like you, who's gone through such a massive transformation, like that mindset that you were in, that actually pushed you over the hump. It's really inspiring, man. Truly, like, kudos to that guy, that version of Mark, who sat there, and who went in from the garage and said to his wife, like, this is it. I got to do this, man. That you owe that guy a lot. That's really awesome.
Right. Because we get a lot of those from guys. Well, I got to think about it. I got to talk to my wife, or whatever it may be. But it always comes down to the core of fear of failure. It comes down to a core of a fear of, I don't want to invest this money and then not show up and do what I've done with the last $99 PDFs that I've bought. And then I'm going to feel as bad as I do about that, only I'm going to have invested a serious amount of money into it, which is going to make me feel 10 times worse. And so I think that the core for every guy that we run into with that, they don't ever have to talk to the wife, because you had to, like, you sold it to the wife. You were like, I'm all in. This is me. So it had to come from, if you didn't have that, I'm all in, you have to trust me. If you didn't have that, you would have probably watched that video and just been like, sounds great, but like, I'm not going to do it anyway. So I'm not even going to entertain. I'm not even going to tell my wife about it. Mm-hmm. And that's the part. I think that what I want to ask you about is, because I think a lot of guys, if guys are listening to this and they want to go through a serious transformation that you've gone through, which we'll let you tell that story. A lot of guys tell us, I know it would be totally worth it, but I still got to think about it. And so they can't quite, I think guys can't quite wrap their head around what it's like to actually go through a full-on transformation that you have gone through. And so can you take us through, okay, you fought for it, you were invested, you got your wife to understand this is going to be it for me. Because if I don't do this, what the fuck am I going to do? And then you start the program. Can you give all of our guys who are listening to this, who are like, man, I could see how it could be worth it. I can see that vision myself, but like, what would it actually be like? What's the process going to be like? What is it? Because that's all the thing that the guys have all the doubt in, is that it's not going to work for them. They're the special snowflake that it's not going to work for.
Mhm.
So can you take us through, okay, what was it like when you started? What did you feel like? What was the onboarding like? What was KT like? And then how did it evolve for you over time? Obviously, you worked with Coach Rich. Can you just kind of take us through that process for you?
Yeah. When I first started, so I remember the first night whenever I responded back to you and I said, I'm going, I'm ready to do it. I remember I was blown away that night. It was 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and I was getting messages from you, messages from Sean. I was getting messages from Rich, and these weren't, that in and of itself was, that was a huge difference. It wasn't, we'll go on and sign up and then the PDF is immediately accessible. And with the PDFs, I mean, those work for some people and I won't say that they don't, but that for me was different. I think it was an immediate support system. And then I think right after that, it was, well, part of those messages that night was, and I'll tell you, it was December 29th is when I signed up, December 29th, 2022. It was, okay, well, we need to set up your first call and we need to set up. So then I did my first call with Rich and just kind of went through where I was, what I wanted to achieve. And then I think, okay, well, we're done. Towards the end of that call, Rich says, well, we need to schedule your first training session. And I thought, well, training session, and he said, well, yeah, we're going to do training session. We'll get on. I need you to send me some videos, take some videos of you doing swings, take some videos of you doing get ups, send those to me. We'll critique them. So then it was, okay, well, I'm going to take it. It wasn't like none of this wasn't explained to me in the beginning, that this is what the process was going to be. But, you still, when you have that many, I just thought, well, okay, we'll see. We'll see if it, and, I sent the videos and then I get back, this very detailed critique of the swings and the get ups. And I think actually Peter, I don't know if Rich or Peter did the first review, but like I said, I'd done kettlebells before. And so I thought, well, I know how to do Turkish get ups. I know how to do swings. I don't need somebody to tell me, how to do that. Well, when it gets broken down the way that it's broken down in these instructional videos, you get done watching them and you're like, I don't really know how to do Turkish get ups or swings. I mean, I do, but it's like you see a lot of times whenever you post swing videos or you see swing videos and you see people in the comments and they say, that hurts my back just watching. Well, it's because you don't know how to do swings and you don't know how to do the movement. But so I think there was that immediate support from the get-go. But what comes with that support for me is, I need to be there. I need to show up. I need to show up for these guys. I need to show up for, they're supporting me. They look at the time that they spent reviewing my video. I get it. I paid for it. But, look at the time that they spent, and committed to reviewing my video. I need to show up. So that immediately I felt a support that I was looking for. And then, like I said, the steps for me, I started out on December 29th or December 30th of 2022. And I committed that, well, I'm going to get to 10,000 steps every day. And I did some ridiculous shit to get my steps. I mean, I can remember in January of 2023, my wife and I went to a concert here in Evansville. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking at my watch and I'm like, shit, I don't have my steps. I'm not going to get my steps. I got up in the middle of the concert and went and walked around the arena to get my steps. There were nights where I walked in a circle in my garage. And so the steps for me, I think, like I said, I wavered. I wavered in the beginning because I was still struggling with some things personally. But the steps was always something that I got. The workouts I got not as regimented as I would have liked at the beginning, but the steps I stuck with it. And I think I ended up going like 602 days, I think, straight with 10,000 plus steps. I finally broke in August of this year. I traveled, and when I got to where I was going, it was in the mountains of West Virginia. And I thought, it was dark. I thought, if I go out right now, I'm going to get like eaten by a bear. I've got to stop, you know? But the steps was always something I tied into and kind of kept me pulled. So over those first few months, like I said, the diet portion I was struggling with committing to. And really, with the diet portion for me, I think, with 2020, I got, like a lot of people, too liberal with my alcohol use. And I'd always, Sean's from Indiana, Southern Indiana. I mean, there's beer that comes out of the faucet here. I mean, everybody just drinks beer. That's what you do. So I'd always been a big beer drinker, and probably, what that did is I would drink beer, diet would get off, didn't feel good. I would struggle, get the workouts in, but I still didn't feel good. And probably in June, I know for sure, June of 2023, I was just kind of down because I was at that point where, again, I was saying, you're not doing what you should do with this program. You're not investing yourself into it. You paid a lot of money. Yes, you're progressing. And I mean, I will say, during this time frame from when I started to June, I still lost 15 pounds. I still went from a 16 kg get up to 32 kg. I still moved up in swings. I still progressed, but it wasn't enough for me personally, because I knew that if I was doing everything I should be doing on my end, that I would be farther along, because I would say, well, shit, look at what you can do just doing what you're doing. The pieces of it, if you would just stop being a fuck up and make the changes you need to make, look, you could be this much further. So in June of 2023, I can remember I set up a call with Rich, and I had rescheduled on him several times, which I felt bad about. That was disrespectful as well. And I can remember the call that we finally connected on. Rich took the call, and he was in his car, and he was taking his son to, I think, soccer practice. So I'm talking to Rich, and I'm like almost broken. I mean, just, apologizing, and I can see, I'm talking to Rich, and he's, driving, and I can see his son, in the background, and I'm thinking, which, just compounds it really even more. I'm like, God, what the fuck? And so I just talked to him, and I said, this is what's holding me back. I think the alcohol is holding me back. I think it's, I'm not someone that wakes up and drinks in the morning. I don't know if I'm an alcoholic. I don't know if I am or not. But it's obvious that me doing that is keeping me from achieving what I want to achieve with this. And I need to figure it out. And he actually recommended some resources, because I told him, I said, I'm not going to go to AA. I'm not going to, because that's not where I'm at. Oh, he recommended some resources, specifically a book that I picked up, and it's like a switch flip for me. And it's like it went off. I initially made the decision, I'm going to stop drinking for a month and just see what happens, because I hadn't went from the time I was 14 and I had my first beer, 14, when I had my first beer, to that point, I hadn't went a month without alcohol. So I thought, well, I'm going to go 30 days. And that 30 days, like so many people, I set it perfectly to where that 30 days coincided with me going to Florida. So the first day that I got to Florida was going to be the 31st day, and I was going to be able to go after it. And I got to Florida, and I didn't have any. And I didn't have any the whole week. And I worked out. Actually, for that trip, we drove to Tampa, which was awful, but drove to Tampa, and I packed bells. So I took bells with me and didn't drink, worked out, got my steps. So when I came back from that, I basically made the decision. I thought, well, that would be the hardest time for you not to do it. So just continue, I'm not going to have any today. And as time passed, I lost the desire for it. But also with that, what made that easier to do is it was like a piece of dynamite went off. I mean, I just started dropping weight like crazy, and the steps, the workouts, everything got more consistent. The eating, my diet. I went to MyFitnessPal June of 2023, started tracking weight, and every calorie, every piece of food, everything I ate, I carried a scale with me, measured everything to the gram, started dropping weight. And so I weighed 330 when I started that. And I think by the end of, in October, I weighed 285 so what, 3.5 months, 3 months. I weighed 285, ran a half marathon here. And by the end of 2023, I think I was at like 265. So I lost 80 pounds since the beginning of 2023. And then it just kept going. And also, in October, you guys came out with advanced nutrition, and I started advanced nutrition with Rich, which is you're tracking every macro. He would set macros. I would put my weight in at the beginning of every week and track every gram of protein, carbohydrate, fat, sleep, water, goals. And I did it every day, every week. And every week, Rich would go and review it. And it was a victory. I couldn't wait for him to review the spreadsheet every week just because I was just making progress. And then I went into 2024 and continued to lose. And I think I hit 100 pounds, I think in January, lost 100 pounds in January of 2024, kept going. And the lowest I got, I dropped. So I started at 345. The lowest weight that I got to was 179 pounds. And that was in May of 2024.
Oh my God.
Wow.
And I was skinny. I've never been that skinny in my adult life. I haven't been that skinny since I hit puberty because I gained a lot of weight when I hit puberty. And it's just, like I said, it's been a constant battle my entire life. But 29, and I've stayed kind of in that area. I've gained some weight back, but it's muscle, because the same clothes that I bought when I weighed 179 fit today. And it's crazy. I started and I was a 44, 46 waist, and now I've got jeans that are 31, 32. It's insane. But
That is insane.
sorry, that was a lot, but
dude, unbelievable. Truly. How fast it came off for you too, especially once it sounds like once you started the advanced nutrition, you were really dialed in like that. Do you feel like that was the catalyst to like really accelerate things? And, I think you said when you started it, you were around like 285 or so when you started the advanced nutrition, and then you went all the way down to, you lost 100 pounds from there.
Well, and the flip side, once I got down, then we start ratcheting calories back up. I think at my lowest, or the lowest calorie goal, I think it was like 2,000, 2,200. And my budget now is 3,500 is what I eat. And there's some days I eat 4,000 calories and I gain weight.
Dude.
I gain muscle, but I eat all the time. I eat healthy food, but I eat all the time.
That's so great. So good, man. How much different is that than your experience when you lost? Obviously when you lost 100 pounds the first time, I'm guessing there was some dietary component there. I know you said your workouts were really hard, but you must have been doing something diet wise as well. Was it different than what you did this time around to lose the weight? And how do you feel like do you feel confident that this is actually going to stick unlike it did the last time? And tell me about that a little bit.
Yeah. What I did before, I don't know how, based on what I eat now, I don't know how I stuck with it as long as I did, but I really got into nutrition, reading about nutrition in 2017, 2018. And I really got into the keto, paleo, high fat, low carb camp. And I think the draw for that was, you drop a lot of weight, you drop a lot of weight fast. But for me, it was strength and recovery was something that I really struggled with. And that's the biggest difference now is that, paleo, keto, if you're in a maintenance phase on paleo or keto, not keto because you can't be, but if you're on paleo and you're in a maintenance phase, you're still only eating 100 grams of carbs a day. I eat 400 grams of carbs a day, or 450. And I think that's what makes it more sustainable is that, I get to eat potatoes, I get to eat rice, one of my favorite things to eat is it's this bread with this fit butter that I put on it. It's like candy to me. And but the carb I mean, it's 50 or 60 grams of carbs. But that doesn't, I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but if with the exercise, and it feeds and fuels the working out. Whereas before, I mean, there's some days I would go in and just feel depleted. And I think that's probably was one of the things that eventually led to the downfall with it was, I just felt like shit all the time. And I was doing the workouts and self-imposed. I mean, it was, I researched and I thought, well, this is the thing to do. But the biggest difference now I think is that I can eat, as far as carbs, healthy carbs, I can eat as many as I want. And that opens the door to a lot more food choices and you feel a lot better. You feel a lot better just in general. I mean, it's with not just working out, but you just feel and carry yourself better, I feel like. And I'm not dogging the high fat camp. There's a lot of people that are successful with it. It just didn't work for me. We're all different. So
Yeah,
And
it's interesting.
you're throwing around some pretty heavy bells now.
yeah, absolutely.
It's like, wait, so you went from 345. What you said you started with like a 16K, 35-pound bell. You got all the way down to 179. I mean, what were you training with? What kind of progression have you seen on the strength front?
The strength, I started with a 16 in December 2022. My PR on get ups at the end of 2023 was a 44 kg is my PR right now. And that's held for this year as well. I've had this 2024 was, I say this year, we're in a new one, but 2024, I just had a lot of stupid injuries, shit that I did to myself. January, I cut the tip of my thumb off making homemade potato chips for my daughter. It's shit like that. Doesn't have anything to do with bells, but it hurt my back moving a treadmill. So I've had 4 or 5 of those. But then that also combined with, I still continue to lose a lot of weight, with that. So even staying consistent with the bells where I was at strength wise, I was happy with. But then I also did, some Spartan races and things like that really the reasoning for doing that was I also signed up for a lot of Spartan races and shit whenever I was trying to find my way. Um, I needed to do a lot of that stuff for myself to go back and say, okay, you finally did it. You did what you said you were going to do. In May when I weighed 179, I did the Big Bear trifecta in California. And what I would tell anybody, I did some body weight stuff, but all I did was the program. And I did some body weight stuff and that was my training for it. My younger brother and I, flew out there and over the course of 2 days, we did 3 races. But I think with the races and things that I've done, really that's the reason. There were so many things like that I signed up for that I just didn't do and I needed to do. Just to, I don't know, make myself whole. But yeah, strength, I'm at the point I started 2-hand swing with a 24 or I don't even know what that is anymore. I've switched to kgs. I guess it's 54.
Yeah. I remember it. That's so light. Don't even remember it.
Yeah. Yeah. But now I think I did workout a couple days ago. That was 2-hand swings. My workout a couple days ago, I did, I think 150 each side, 1-hand swings with a 32. And I did it time-wise, I did it within, I don't know, I think 10 minutes. And get ups, my regular training bell is probably my heavy right now. My moderate's a 32, my heavy's a 40, or no, 36, and my heavy's a 40 right now. It's what very heavy's a 40. But that's the funny thing. It's what I tell my working bell right now for pretty much everything is a 32, which, it's like I tell my brother, I'm like, the crazy thing is sometimes when that's what I can do, I'm like pissed off. But then I think that's a heavy ass kettlebell. And I think it's the mindset you get in. You're like, God, man, I did the 40, I did the 44, I did this. And I'm like, a 32 kg is still a heavy ass kettlebell. But
Very.
I think it's, what you get used to. But yeah, it's strength is held steady. My next goal is the 48 kg on the get up. So, and I'll get
Yeah,
it.
buddy.
But yeah,
Let's go.
yeah,
That'll be a massive milestone, man. That's so
yeah,
cool. That I mean, to think that you're throwing around that much weight, that you've lost that much weight too, and to hear that you're eating so much, like that seems like such a different experience than most people who lose weight through starving themselves. Give away all their muscle, don't build the strength, and then struggle to keep it off long term. But what you found is like now I can eat twice as much as I was eating when I was losing the weight because I'm consistently training hard and lifting heavy weight, but like you mentioned, it's almost like heavyweight is just an assumption for you now. It's like 32K, you're pissed off. You're like, oh man, I don't feel good today. All I was able to do was a 32K. And it's like, dude, if we would have talked to you 2 years ago, you'd have been like 32K. What are you talking about? Like, how would I ever put that bell over my head or swing that bell? Right. So it's like, yeah, that's a transformation, man.
yeah, yeah.
Man.
Good man.
The food thing's funny. We were on our way to my in-laws, which they live a couple hours north of here, and this past weekend, and I looked at my wife and I said, we were going to be there in time for lunch. And I looked at my wife and I said, well, what are we having for lunch? Because it's always, my life revolves around making sure I eat enough food. And I should have packed my food, but I didn't. But she said, well, I think we're just having lunch meat sandwiches. And I stopped and looked at her and I'm like, lunch meat sandwiches? And she said, well, I mean, you can eat lunch meat. I'm like, do you have any idea how much fucking lunch meat I'll have to eat to get 75, 80 grams of protein? But I stopped at Fresh Time and I got like some packaged chicken, like 12 ounces of chicken and this thing of rice. And I put this like just massive, platter of food together. And my mother-in-law just looks at me like I'm a freak, but it's just this massive. And I'm so hungry. I'm hungry all the time. Uh, and like I said, that's 4,000 calories, 3,500, 4,000 calories. But I mean, it's just, my metabolism is just, it hums, but
Man. So, Mark, now that you've gone through this big transformation, I would assume that there are people in your life that almost like experience you differently than they did 2020 version of Mark. Can you give us some insight to that? What's the relationship like with your wife, with your kids, coworkers?
yeah. Uh, with my kids, I think part of this journey, I didn't have, I think because I was so frustrated with myself and just frustrated in general, I'm a completely different person than I was. I mean, I see pictures of myself before, and my wife would even tell you I'm not the same person as I was before. I just didn't have a lot of patience. I think before I think, and it's sad that it took me until I was 42, 41 to figure this out, but I think I was living in a zone that I wasn't meant to be in. And I think I was really unhappy with that. And I think that showed. I just didn't have a lot of patience and didn't have a lot of patience with my kids, didn't have a lot of patience with my wife. Wanted more than anything, it was the utmost importance for me to be a good husband, to be a good father. But I was so frustrated with myself. And, um, my mom, she said it probably a month, probably mid 2023. She just looked at me and she said, you're completely different. Your approach to situations, you're a lot more just patient. You're a lot more grounded. You're just a lot happier. And I think it goes back to because I was living out who I was meant to be, who that person that gave me confidence. And from a work standpoint, just my output is a lot higher. My, desire to meet with people versus send an email or, I want to meet with people now. I'm just a lot more personable. I feel like that. I think a lot of that, it always goes back to just confidence. I mean, I think that determines how we all act in a lot of ways. And when I didn't have confidence, it frustrated me. And um, I was just kind of an asshole, to be honest. But I like last night, there was Apple, the memories pop up where they put the pictures together. And there was a picture that popped up. And I just look at these pictures and I'm like, wow. I mean, I was just not in a good way for a long time. And the joining KT was the first, I think, step for me in the right direction. And I think the community, I think the guys, I think it's you guys' approach. It's not this you push, but it's not, you also realize that it's real life and we all live in real life and shit happens. You know, we get sick kids, we get hurt, and I think it's the grace shown with that while also continuing to push and motivate to not say, well, okay, you have a sick kid, but you still need to get your shit done. You know, I mean, I get it. I have kids, my kids are sick, you still need to get your shit done. And I think it was just that continual support. And then I think it was also just all the guys in the community, just seeing that, you know, they all struggle too. Everybody has these same issues, these same struggles. They're different. You know, they may be in a different part of the country or hell, even a different part of the world, but we all struggle with the same shit. It's not just me. And it's not just a problem with me. It's these guys have the same thing. And I think it gives a lot of the guys in the community a place to air their, I don't know, it's not grievance, it's not the right word, but just who they are. I mean, it's tough. I mean, we all have struggles, and I think it gives us a place to do that. But then also feel supported, and, you know, but also share when you have, you know, you get a PR, or, you know, I think that's what's different for me as opposed to me doing it alone, because if I had a PR before, nobody gave a shit because nobody knew what it was. Whereas now people know what it is. People know how hard it is to pick up a 32 and to do a get up or a 40 or a 44. So I think it's just that overall support. I think that community, that support, I think it just made me a better person. The whole thing has made me a better person. Like I said, I'm not as much of an asshole anymore, I guess.
That's the biggest win.
The whole program.
I'm just not an
There
asshole.
may be some people that may argue with that.
Yeah, right. Oh,
he's not as big of an asshole, but
yeah, that's great, man. A different human being. That must be crazy to look back at those memories that Apple puts together for you and see the 350-pound mark and be like, who the fuck is that guy?
absolutely.
Why is he on my phone? Like, what is he doing in a timeline on my phone? That's wild. Too cool.
And it's just, I don't know. One story I did, my mom. So when I lost the weight, my mom is not a short story about my mom. So my mom she'll be 80 years old next year. And if you saw her, she looks like she's about 60 or 65. And my mom was this close, well, so you can see it, this close to being a nun. She was raised in an all-girls school. What that did for her is, my mom is one hard-ass woman. And I can remember her seeing, she still to this day, I will walk up beside her. Like if we're in the airport, or she travels with us a lot whenever we go to like Florida and whatever, she kind of tags along, and I'll walk up next to her in an airport and she won't know it's me. And I'll walk up to her, we'll be at a swim meet and she'll be there, and I'll walk up and stand next to her. And then she'll just kind of glance out of the corner of her eye, and, you know, she'll just kind of jump back because I know her, so I'm standing probably closer to her than a stranger would. So she'll jump back. But when we were at the beach one time, it was, and Grant, this is something else you said in your video about taking your shirt off. You know, men want to be able to take their shirt off and feel confident. So we were at the beach 2023, and I took my shirt off. You know, I normally didn't. I always wore a swim shirt or whatever. And whenever I would go into the ocean, and I took my shirt off, and I walked out to the ocean with my girls, and, you know, I didn't know it, but I guess my mom started crying with my wife, and she was, it just took her back to see me, to see what kind of shape I was in. And that's why I mentioned that she's a hard-ass woman, because I haven't seen my mom cry more than a few times in my entire life. Mm-hmm. And I think the impact, I guess that touches on before as well, the impact, I think it really touched her, and I think it still does, because she's one that, no matter what struggles I've had in my life, my mom and I, you know, good or bad, you know, we're just very honest with each other, and, you know, that we have our good times, and we're honest with each other when we're not happy with each other too. So I think it really meant a lot to her just to see the change. So,
man, how'd you keep it together telling that story? I would have lost it. I almost lost it sitting
I'm
here.
barely keeping it together. And I've,
Yeah.
like I said, the stuff with my daughter, I've sidestepped because I have a hard time with that part. But yeah, my mom is, and I've even, the funny thing with my mom, is these oats that I eat every morning. My mom now eats these oats. My mom now takes AG1. My mom now, I'm this close to getting her to get into my cold plunge. And, uh,
Love it.
she just, the last time that she walked by it, she just stopped and stood next to it. And she goes, "Do you think I could get in up to my knees?" And I'm like, "I'll turn it up to like 55. You can get your whole body in." And I'm like, if you go into cardiac arrest, I'll pull you out.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Maybe. But
Yeah.
no, she does. I got her to start taking creatine. She started taking creatine last week. And, but it's that way she has friends that it's the same thing. And, that for me is probably one of the harder parts, because it's not, to me, changes that I've made. It's just, I don't want to say it's not a big deal to me, but I don't look at it as it's a huge deal. But my wife Sandy continually tells me that it's a very big deal, and it's been very impactful to a lot of people. And that's what I try to remember. I want the same thing for, anybody that's in my shoes, or the shoes that I was in. I want the same thing, because I would have paid 10 times what I paid for the program initially to be where I'm at today. And without a doubt, it's in a heartbeat.
Man.
What a guy. You must be from Indiana. I mean, fuck. There's no
People,
doubt
man.
about
Good people.
Good
it. You're a
people.
Hoosier. You're a Hoosier. A former beer drinking Hoosier.
That's
Now
it.
just a
That's it.
kettlebell. Now just
Yeah.
good
Yeah.
stuff. We should
Yeah.
probably wrap up. We've kept you past the time, so I just want to be
Yeah,
cognizant of
no.
that. Like, CFO, busy guy, man. Got some bells to swing.
Seamus, do you have any hot rapid fire questions for our guy?
Yeah, I'll be quick. Rapid fire, hot seat. Favorite kettlebell exercise?
Get up.
Amen to that. Favorite kettlebell weight?
32.
Good. Good man, the Hellboy. Boy, it's been a while since we've done an interview like this. What would you say is the number one impact of the program? You obviously touched on a lot, but if you had to pinpoint one single change that's been the most impactful, what is it?
It's made me a better father, better husband, I guess, better family man. That's what I would say.
Amazing.
And then probably second to that would be financial, I think, for me. I'm kind of the flip side. It was an investment for me, but it's like I said before, it's an investment that has done pretty well on my end.
That's really interesting. You've had an actual financial ROI to transforming your health and your body. And do you attribute that to more energy, to better brain power, to better physique that's gotten? I mean, what do you feel like has contributed the most to that? Or is it all those things? Or
yeah, I think it's better brain power. I think it's more confidence. I think it's, when you have more confidence, you take more chances, or what you view as taking a chance, which is probably what you should do anyway. Whereas I would have held back before. I think the increased confidence has pushed me to do some things that has made me more successful. I think before, I think I was just existing, and now I grow and try to grow and push and grow. And, personal development, something else that I've gotten really into, podcast, and like Ed Milet, Andy Frisella, some of those guys I listen to on a regular basis. But I think that I never did any of that before, nor did I have any interest or see a need to do it. But I think I'm constantly trying to get better. And I think that has helped me be a lot more successful.
that's really cool.
One of the last things we usually ask guys is, what would you tell someone who's considering taking the leap, making the plunge, joining KT? But you kind of already answered that question. So I'm going to ask you a different one. Why do you feel like what you do now is going to last? Why do you feel like, what you've done in KT, you can keep going for the next 10, 20, 30 plus years?
I think for me, I think to fitness, I think it's finding something, like I said with diet, I love what I eat, and diet's a huge part of the puzzle. I love what I eat, and the nutrition side to KT, that's basically what I do. I mean, there's some things that, I've added in that, what I would say are like a treat for me, but it's still a base, a healthy fat and a carb. And from a training standpoint, I think, and I think we see this with some of the men that are in the program, it's sustainable no matter what your age is. You can do a Turkish get up, when you're 20, you can do it 30, 40, 50. And there are guys in the program that do it 60, 65, and they get strong. And I think that's, for me, I think I see it as a long term. I can do get ups, I can do bells in 10 or 15 years. So I think for me, it's not, I don't always say to myself, well, it's great that you're deadlifting 400 right now, but what are you going to do in 5 years when you can't do this anymore? Or what are you going to do? At some point, you're going to have to change because you're going to have to start worrying more about injury. And for me, this is just, I know that there's not a point where I have to change. And I also know that if I stick to the program, I'm going to see progress. I remember there was a post I got done with, I think it was Mastery Strength 1. And I put a post out to the group, and I really meant what I said, which was there were so many times in that program where I would look at what the workouts were for the day, and I would think, what in the fuck, how am I going to do that? And then I would look at the weight, but then I would do it. And I would look back and I'm like, holy shit. And just look back and I was just shocked. But I think it's those moments where I think that's what keeps you coming back, because you're not hurt and you just continue to build strength, but it's strength that you see in everyday life. It's strength that, my example is always, and I've always used this, when, you go to grab a bag of dog food off the bottom shelf, you're going to feel, if you do that before you do KT and you're where I was, and then you go 6 months on KT and you go back to grabbing that bag of dog food, you're going to tell a difference. And that you're going to tell a difference in shoveling snow. You're going to tell a difference. That, I think, is the connection to real life, the real life activities, I think, is what keeps me and should keep anybody coming back. And they're just kind of fun. The bells are kind of fun to do too.
Yes, they are.
I mean, it's just,
Hey, man.
and you can take them anywhere. I mean,
Even to Tampa.
I need to find a better way to travel with them so they don't clink and roll around. But, but yeah, it's just, you can take a mat and take your bells and mat and do them anywhere. Like I said, I took them to Florida with me, and I can remember, we stayed in this condo and they had the shopping carts and stuff. And I've got a shopping cart that's got, I think then it was like a 16, my 24, and I think 32. And the shopping cart, I'm just pushing it up to the elevator and taking it up, and took him to Florida, brought him back, So I think it's that too, that I don't have to be in a gym to do it. So it's ease of access. And then I think it's impact on real life. I've got a friend of mine that he religiously has went to the gym forever. And he does like the old school, it's not old school, but like barbell work, squats, the same. If we go to move a washer together, I'm going to be able to move more of that. And he's huge. I'm going to be able to move that washer easier than that guy is. And I think it's just transfer of strength. I think it's functional strength versus being able to grab a barbell. And again, not dogging it. Everybody, different strokes for different folks. But
yeah,
for me, I've done both. And I've found that the strength gain from the kettlebells is a lot more transferable than barbells for me. But
amazing.
You're a kettlebell guy. You're a kettlebell guy through and through, man. Love
through
it.
and through.
It's amazing.
Mark, thank you for your time.
Seriously.
Thank you, guys.
Truly,
and
thank you. That's cool.
Your personal investment over the last 2 years, your story inspires so many men, probably more men than you realize. And it's because you had the courage to step up, make the decision, and then follow through over the last couple of years. So thank you, truly.
Wow. I hope it does. I hope it, anytime I can connect with anybody to try to push them, I really want people to experience the same success, and they can, but they just have to get over, it's not even, I would tell anybody, I would say it's not the money that you're worried about. I mean, we can pin it on the money, and that's an easy thing to say, it's the money. But I can promise you, people waste money on a lot stupider shit then it's not the money. I think it's just people wrapping their mind around it's a lot of hard work. And I think it's people wrapping their mind around the hard work. But what I would say is it's very much worth it. And if you don't do something, the work's going to be a lot harder later in life. So, but
Damn, that you just nailed it right there. I mean, that's the truth, right? It's just like guys wrapping their head around. It's interesting because Grant said fear earlier, but in my mind, you almost just explained it even more clearly, which is like it's not even fear, because fear is like you're afraid because you don't know. But like I think every guy knows. They know it's going to be hard work. It's just whether or not they think that hard work is going to be something that they can do, and then whether or not it's going to be worth it. But to hear you say that like it is absolutely worth it. You talk about going on your trip and stopping at the grocery store and buying a bunch of chicken breasts. Like that's just right. It's like that. Is that hard work? Well, yeah, it's harder than just like driving straight there and eating the lunch meat, but it's like, it's worth it, man. It's like, that's just, you got to be that guy. So man, the hard work, wrapping your head around the hard work. That's a great, thank you for sharing that. That's a really cool insight.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing everything, Mark. Truly, man. Really blessed to hear your story and have you spare time in your day to share it with everyone. So thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we've connected lots of people in the past with Mark. So if you are interested in KT, you want to hear it directly from Mark, just message me, get in contact with me, and I'll get you in contact with Mark.
I'd be happy to. And I mean, I love to, you can't tell by some of the rambling. I love to talk about it. It's not, you can see that too. It's not bragging. It's not anything like that. I'm the most humble person you'll ever meet, but I like to tell the story. I like to talk about it. I like to pass along. There's another guy in the group that I connected with. He joined, I loved, which it ended up being a very long message. He asked me about diet and it ended up being a very long message, but I love rattling that stuff off. I love talking about it. I love recommending, to people, I eat 300 people struggle with protein. I sometimes have to like stop myself from eating more than 300 grams of protein a day. And it's just, I love to help people to get better and take that step. So I just, like I said, some of the heavier guys, I know what they struggle with, and I know how good it feels to not struggle with those things anymore. So I'd love to help.
Well, Mark, thank you. Truly. Thank you. Appreciate your time. We'll do this again a couple years down the road, maybe a year down the road when you do the 48K get up. You can come back, tell everyone about it. I love that.
I'm doing the 48. My plan is to do the 48K get up in Chicago in a couple of months.
Yes.
Let's
at the retreat.
Can't wait.
Signed up.
Oh my God.
I signed up.
Incredible.
I'm going to be up there.
Let's go.
Can't wait.
You can do it, and then we'll jump in Lake Michigan together. Yep.
Go
It'll be
man.
Good stuff, Mark.
All right, Mark. Well, thank you very much. And thanks to everybody listening to another episode of the Kettlebell Guys. You know where to find us. And we'll see you next time.
Cheers.
See you guys.